So this is what we did, and we tried to identify these differences by looking on longitudinal survey data. And the first thing I want to do is to show you the results we found, because we are all here for the findings somehow. But after that, I want to tell you which things we did not find, because we did not have the data to analyze certain things. So to start with our analysis first, we limited our research to a specific set of countries, because we have certain data available for certain countries, so there is only a limited comparability allowed, and based on data availability we choose Germany, Spain and the United Kingdom, and we focus these analyses on 4 topics. First topic is the status quo of gender equality. How do people perceive the status quo of gender equality in gender-based discrimination? The second topic is LGBTQ support for same-sex couples and support for adoption of same-sex couples. And we also going to focus on abortion rights and traditional gender role attitudes, but since I'm in the middle of the analysis, I don't have the results for you today, so this is a little cliffhanger. You all can go to the part of this project as soon as we're done. The data we use ranges from 2010, the earliest, to 2024, the latest. So the coverage is really inconsistent here, so it differs between countries and topics, which data we have available. But let's go see the findings. Perceptions of gender equality and gender-based discrimination. How do these perceptions change within the individual? We had questions asked like, do you think that discrimination against women is still a problem in your country, or do you think that society has reached a point where men and women have equal opportunities for achievement? And we have a cross-country trend here, at least for the Western European countries we analyzed, that there is no clear change in people's perceptions of gender equality, which in my opinion is not really surprising, right? Because one could ask, did gender equality really improve over the last 5 or 10 years so that people can notice an improvement and change their attitudes or their perceptions accordingly? So in my opinion, it's not really a surprise that we can't find a clear change in individuals' perceptions here, but we have a really interesting finding for the other items on support for queer rights and same-sex couples. So I brought you data from Spain, for example, and across all countries we looked at, we can see a positive long-term trend. So we can clearly say that starting from 2010s, that there has been like an increase in individual support for same-sex or for LGBTQ rights according to same-sex couples, and we see that clearly in Spain their agreement to same-sex adoption increased. The data reaches until 2019, so we have no current data, but we have similar trends for the UK and Germany. And if you look at the UK, for example, the question is a little bit different. So it asked about equal opportunities for gays and lesbians, and the higher values here indicate more like a disagreement with LGBTQ support. So we see that starting from 2014, the disagreement decreased a little bit, and this stayed stable for a while, but then starting from 2018, and then with a big shift in 2022 to 2024, we saw an increase again in these attitudes, this perception of that these attempts for more equal rights have gone too far. And the interesting thing is that we see the same thing for Germany. So probably it's too early to talk about like a long-term trend for the UK. At this point, it's only like some years where we have the according data, but since we see the same things in Germany, I think it is worth mentioning that we have like a shift here, and it seems like things like we found in other work package, looking at party manifestos and public speeches, looking at the public discourse, where we see that right-wing rhetoric really intensified regarding LGBTQ rights. It is a finding if we have significant increases in like hostility towards same-sex rights and acceptance. So this is definitely something we could take away from that, even if we need more time to see how things will develop in the next years. So far on our findings and the things we found in the data, but I now want to draw your attention to how limited we were in our selection of which countries and which topics to analyze, because clearly data availability set boundaries in that decision process. And I brought you this plot because together with my student assistant Natalia, we spent a lot of time doing a systematic review of all panel studies that have their data and questionnaires available in English language for the European context. And we went through all of these questionnaires and looked if the panel studies had items on gender equality or LGBTQ rights included in their questionnaires for different waves. And we plotted them, and you see here all the countries that, all the panel studies that had at least one gender item included for a wave in a specific year are marked in blue, and the studies that did not have even one gender equality item or gender item measured are mapped in pink. And what we see if we look at on the whole picture is that the first thing, there was a really late introduction of gender questions, right? So that we have a wide coverage of gender items only starts in the 2010s, which does not allow us to make assumptions about gender attitudes developed over a life course of a person, because it's really on a short time span we have data available. And another thing we can see here, if we look at the countries in the second row, is that we have a really poor geographical coverage. So there is a clear dominance of Western European countries. We have a lot of data for Germany and the UK available in English language. We do also have data from the Netherlands or Switzerland, but this is really a poor coverage for Southern or Eastern European countries. Yeah, we can really not draw broad conclusions about country patterns. So we saw from Christie's data there are country differences, and we cannot really map them for individual attitudes development because we don't have the data, which I think is a problem. And to not forget my last point, I think I mentioned it already too. We have a huge variation of questions asked within panels and between panels. So even if we look at the same panel program, it does not assure us that we have the same question asked again and again. In some countries we have, in others not. So it makes it difficult for us to really compare over time. So, and we need to improve that situation. So if you ask me from the research perspective, what should we take away from this realization of poor data availability? It's basically that we need to improve the country coverage and the availability of data in English language. And we need to assure that we have gender items fielded more consistently within and across panel studies. It's just necessary. So to do so, we need more money. It's simple. We need more targeted research funding. This would help a lot to support existing national panel programs and to help them improve their data quality, translating and making data accessible for a broader international research audience, which would also have to improve the country coverage, because it's not that we don't have panel studies in Eastern and Southern Europe. It's more the problem that in these countries we have less translation of data documentation. And funding should also strengthen cross-national panel infrastructures, because we have some. We have the EU SIL with the GDS, and we have the SILS panel, but not all ask gender items, and some of them not consistently, or they're not really long running with the same samples. So we need to have a better coverage there, and I think that can be done by incentivizing these panel infrastructures to integrate gender items more consistently and more often. And I think with a better coverage, with better data availability, we would have enough data to really access long-term development of attitudes, to assess individuals' attitudes over a lifespan, and it would also allow us to get really a complete picture of regional differences in liberalization, traditionalization, polarization, and to really map backlash dynamics across all the countries. So, thanks for listening.